Welcome to the Mindset. I'm Christopher Feltner, training and performance architect with Ukeru Systems. And with me, I have.
Hi, I'm Allison Hoffmaster. I'm a learning engineer with Ukeru Systems.
So we are setting a new precedent today. So normally I would be here with my co-host, Kim Sanders, but she is busy doing other great things. And also, it's good for everyone who hasn't got to meet our other folks on our team. This is a good opportunity to bring one in. So Allison Hoffmaster is someone who has a lot of history with Grafton, even before Allison. So Allison, why don't you tell everyone kind of your family lineage of working here at Grafton?
Yeah, absolutely. My mother has worked here. She's on her 36th year working at Grafton. And so when I was younger, growing up, I can remember my brother and I coming to Grafton with her on the campuses. But then, 30 some years ago, she was actually able to bring a lot of her clients home with her. So I can remember a lot of the holidays, family reunions, lots of times spending times with clients that we even still have at Grafton today. So, and then my grandmother worked here for several years. She retired from here. My brother and sister-in-law work here as well. And then my fiance, Damien, works here. And then I met my daughter, Lila, working here at Grafton. So it's a big family.
So that's a lot to get into. If this was The Bachelor, this would be the part of the interview where they go, it's really a lot. This has been a lot. Right? So it's interesting because you talked about how long folks have worked here from your family and how many have worked here. You yourself have been here how long again? Total?
6 years yesterday.
6 years. It's kind of like dog years. It's way more than 6 years, right? So, I mean, if you think about this field, there's a lot of turnover in our field, right? Working with individuals with complex behaviors and needs. And especially, I feel like in current times, turnover is even more challenging with everything else going on in life, much less the challenges of working with the individuals that we do. What is it about your family, right? Why do you think that so many members, including yourself, maybe even start with yourself and then your family in general, what makes you stay in this field?
That's a great question. And honestly, it's kind of funny because when my brother and I were younger, we always said to each other, we will never work at Grafton. We were growing up and seeing everything that our mother went through. And then I can just remember her coming home. One vivid memory would be she came home with a lot of injuries. Her arms were very scratched and she was bleeding. And I can just remember us saying, like, we will never work there. And it's funny now that I'm working at Grafton and I can see around the time and all the changes that happen from switching, from decreasing their restraint and seclusion use, and then her injuries kind of stopped. She didn't come home with injuries or bleeding or bruising. And so it was really just going to be like a stepping stone for me after I graduated college. I felt like I'll go there and work for a short amount of time, but I didn't think that I would make a career here. And just, I think the biggest thing for our family is helping people. Like, we love to help people. When I was younger, I can remember driving through Winchester and my mother saw a homeless man on the street and he had a sign. And I can remember her taking off her gloves that she was wearing and her scarf and giving it to him. Like, anything that we can do to help others, like that really just makes us happy.
So you feel like it's something like inside, like there's an internal motivation, right?
And just the satisfaction that you get from helping others, seeing your clients grow, the progress that they make. I feel like that's what keeps us all here.
So for you kind of have a unique experience because you've worked direct care with individuals here at Grafton, but now you travel and you train, you carry, do consultation, everything else for other organizations. For you, what made you make that switch?
I think for me, it was seeing my mother go through the switch younger and what she went through. And then when I came to Grafton, we were already using Ukeru full time, all of that. I didn't know anything else, but then it's really helping other organizations see the change, see a new way of thinking and working on de-escalation, prevention strategies. Just helping that change spread across our country is really what's motivating to me.
And I would certainly agree with that sentiment. In fact, I have a blog that's overdue to write for us about, why I do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big piece, probably the biggest piece of it, right? You've
Mm-hmm.
seen the success of how it's helped people here, and then it's how do we help others, not
Right.
just others do better, but also avoid some of the mistakes that we've made through this, over a decade long process.
Right. And when we go through the change process, we always think about how we're helping our clients and how we're helping our staff, but we're also helping both families as well. Like we're helping our clients' families and helping them feel safe, but then also our staff's families. I can think of myself when I was a young child with my mother being bruised or seeing those injuries. So we're helping so many people involved.
And I think I like that you bring that up, your experience of seeing, the effects of the aggression, on your mom and being like, I'm never going to be around that, kind of develops that bias about it.
Mm-hmm.
And we certainly, I feel like a lot of times in a community or when you talk to people in general outside this field, they're like, oh, what do you do for a living? Where do you work? And you tell them about the work at your facility, and they're like, oh, you do such great work. Like I couldn't do that.
It takes a special person.
Right. Because well, one, I feel like it does, but
Yeah.
but also I feel like people automatically think about all of the worst things.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if they've never been in this field, then they're going by what they heard or what they've seen depicted in movies and television and who knows what. So it is interesting because when we talk about trauma, you also talk about vicarious traumatization, where
Mm-hmm.
maybe you personally didn't experience it, but you saw someone else, right? So that would be true.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, when I first heard about Grafton, this whole field was one of my best friends in middle school. His mom worked at Grafton for a really long time. And I remember her, like it kind of makes me sound like a creeper a little bit, but I remember her sunbathing outside when we're playing outside, and she would have like this clear, like teeth marks on her leg or her arm. And we'd ask her about it. She'd be like, oh, one of the kids was having a hard time and bit me or scratched me. As a middle school kid, you're like, whoa, like that's crazy. And this was back when, martial art movies were the big thing. And it's like, how do you let someone bite you or how do you deal with that? So kind of looking at where I was in middle school up to now, almost 43 years old, I still get a chuckle thinking about all that.
Mm-hmm.
So you have an added level of involvement with our field, right? Because like you said, you met your daughter here at Grafton.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I started at Grafton, I started in our adult service program. But then after I graduated college, I moved to our student service program. And my first position in student services was working as an educational one-on-one aide. And my brother actually worked with Lila a year prior to when I started working with her. So she was discharged for a couple months for some medical reasons, and then she came back in February. And so she needed another one-to-one. And so I stepped into that role. And so from February to November, I worked with her in the academic setting, and I just really just grew a bond to her. I knew that I wanted to be a part of her life forever. I just knew that I wouldn't be a one-on-one aide forever. It wasn't my forever position. So how do I keep that still going with her? How do I remain in her life? And so we were sitting in the classroom one day, and her adoption recruiter came in, and they were talking about how she was approaching her 18th birthday in the next couple years. They had some families that were interested or had actually gotten Lila for some visits, but they weren't able to manage her aggressions. They didn't feel safe with her. And so they just really didn't know what the next step for Lila was. And so I asked if, like, what does it entail? And so at first it was going to be an advocate for her, someone to really advocate for her throughout her life, throughout her medical needs, her educational needs when she transitioned into a adult program. And then we started really small, like it was a slow transition. So I went to an ABA specialist from there. So I was an RBT, and I switched campuses. So I wasn't working on the same campus as her, but I started getting her 2 days a week. So I would get her every Sunday from like 10 to 6, and then on Wednesday evenings. And I would bring her into my home. She would spend the evening with us, and then I would take her back to the group home. And we did that for 6 months, and then we were able to develop a transition plan where she was able to then live at home with us. And she's been at home with us since November of 2017, and she turns 21 in a couple weeks. So it's crazy to think.
So any big plans for that 21st birthday?
I'm still trying to decide it. And it's kind of crazy because I'm usually a planner, have everything planned out, but I need to make this one like perfect for her.
So what was, you said you worked with her a long time just as a staff. How has her transition been from Allison's my staff that I regularly see to now she's my guardian? Like, what has that transition been like for her, do you think?
I feel like it went well because it was so over time. I went from being her staff and I worked with her all the time in school, but then I would pick up overtime and make sure I was there in the evenings so she would have a one-on-one. I would come in and take her to prom. And then I'm a big social story fan for her. So I prepare lots of social stories for any big things. So I explained why that she wouldn't be seeing me Monday through Friday, but she would be seeing me other times. And then we slowly started introducing things into our house. So we got her a dresser where she could keep clothes there. And then we started taking pictures. At that point we were allowed to take pictures together. We would print them, just really communicating that way. And now it's funny, when her school holds a school play, as soon as she walks in, there could be 50 people and she can spot me immediately and just dash right for me.
Well, that probably still feels good in a little way too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like she knows me, right?
Right. And she says a few words, but one of them that's strong is mama. She says that often.
Very cool. Well, another benefit of so much of your family working at Grafton is when you travel, you also have like an extraordinary support network for her that allows you to be able to do this, which I appreciate, but also I'm sure you're super appreciative having that.
Yeah.
So to switch gears a little bit, right? So you've now been training with us for over a year. What has been your experience like? What are some takeaways for you from this experience of traveling and helping other people kind of change their mindset and approach to similar how we are here?
I would say the biggest thing for me is just making sure that we don't assume that everyone knows what to do in the moments. So it's really about, training that, teaching that, but then collaboration. So continuing to collaborate with our customers, with each other in the office. If we are struggling with something, I feel like we do a good job asking each other. So we stay like up to date on how you would respond, and just that, you think that everyone knows information, but it could be that they don't know that there's another way to deal with these situations, or even how to do that. So it's really about making sure that everyone feels comfortable, I feel like, responding to it. And then just, again, making sure that we don't assume that people know.
Gotcha. So what's one of your favorite places? Like, what are some of your favorite places, just location wise, that you've been to so far traveling?
I really enjoyed the atmosphere of Albuquerque, New Mexico. So I really enjoy just like they have a downtown area that's really cool. I really like when we travel places and we can walk outside and there's a lot of things to do in that area, as far as like restaurants and shops and just seeing different areas. The first time I went to Arizona, I probably said like 5 times, I can't believe there's not grass here. So it just was really shocking that they didn't have grass, and that they said it rained like 1 time for them last year. So it really opened your eyes to everyone lives differently. Everyone has different experiences as far as where their house even is. And I really enjoy looking at different style houses, neighborhoods.
They normally just call that peeping Tom.
Yeah,
Right. So you started with us before COVID really hit.
Mhm.
And then you've also been a part of us, obviously, through COVID and now this new semi post COVID, but not really, state that our country and all is in.
Mhm.
What have been some of the changes that you've noticed in recent times? Because for a long time, like 2020 was pretty much lockdown. Like there was very little travel, people very hesitant to touch each other at all.
Mhm.
And then we've, of course, made accommodations as we gradually started traveling again last year of, implementing different PPE types of things, temperature checks, CDC questions, and everything else with training. But now, I mean, more and more, and you know this yourself on the trips you've been on, more and more of the restrictions are starting to lift.
Mhm.
So, how do you feel people in public in different states when you're traveling? How do you feel like people in general are acting in terms of the restrictions? Do you feel like people are more relaxed now than they were? Do you feel like people are still, very tense about the possibility of catching COVID? Like, what has that been like for you?
I feel like it depends on where I travel to.
Hmm.
Definitely the state and what their restriction and guidelines are, but also what type of setting that we're traveling to, especially in the beginning. So, at Grafton, we never stopped working. We're
Right.
24/7. We had our clients with us. We just changed where we had our education program. So I think it depends on the staff too, if they're comfortable. Like, have they been working this whole time, or were they off for several months and now returning to the workplace? Because, I can remember when we were working from home for a couple months and then having us back in the office, it was just different, getting used to that again. But something that surprised me most recently is that airlines are boarding by group again. And, for several months, it's been by your row. And so that's what I'm used to listening for. And then they were like group one, and I didn't even hear it the first time. And they were on like group three. And I'm like, oh, I'm group one. I should be on the plane by now. They just kind of didn't tell us that they were making that transition. And then I was on a plane that was three across. The middle seat was booked. So I hadn't been used to that for a couple months. But I feel like people in the environments and the areas that we're traveling to seem more relaxed. They seem more comfortable.
Yeah, I would definitely agree that I feel like people are getting more relaxed out in public.
Mhm.
Um, in training, I think it's hit and miss. Some places we go and people are super relaxed to the point where you have to ask them, hey, we got to put the mask up over the nose or wear your mask and things like that. Then some places, like if anyone even takes their mask down to take a drink, all the eyes are, looking at them.
Mhm.
I actually appreciate how vigilant flight attendants are on airlines about making sure people have their mask on, just because you're in such a close proximity for who knows how long. Um, it'd be great if they could figure out something better for one or two bathrooms for everyone to use. But other than that, I feel like it's been a fairly positive experience. They give us our little alcohol wipe and all. But every once in a while, you get on that flight where they don't give you one. It's like, huh, what's going on there? So, all right. So if you're wondering what that little split was, Allison froze on me.
Kicked me out, but I'm
That's
back.
right. That's right. Kicked her out. Didn't like what she had to say. So right now, as of today, May 12th, when we're filming this, the big news right now is the gas shortage.
Mhm.
The gas shortage going on around here. Do so as you know, so many pumps around different places have signs where they're like sold out of gasoline altogether. Like, what are your thoughts about that? Do you think this is like a short-term thing? Do you think this is going to last a while? Like any Allison predictions on that?
Well, I'm very hopeful that it's short term because we definitely need gas. And it's one of those things where you tell yourself, like, don't panic. But then if you really think about it, like, we have to have gas. Like, we can't
Mm.
go anywhere.
Yep.
When my brother-in-law went to fill up his car yesterday, he said he saw someone in the back of his truck with 12 gas cans filling it up. And when he left, he was like at $116 of just filling up gas cans.
Yeah. What I worry is that gas is going to become the new toilet paper,
Right.
right? 2020 was the year of the toilet paper. 2021, the year of the gasoline, right?
Definitely choose a shortage of toilet paper over gas if I had to pick. What about you?
Man. Well, here's the thing. Gasoline will get you to the store to get to toilet paper. Toilet paper can't help you get anywhere, but depending on how many times you go a day, one's more important than the other, right?
It is. Could be.
I haven't tried to cleanse myself with gasoline before, but I can imagine it's not a pleasurable experience,
I feel like there are more alternatives to toilet paper than there is gasoline.
I kind of wonder that too, though. Like when you straight up, like let's say that you were unfortunate enough to find toilet paper anywhere during 2020. What did you use, right? Like, what do you think people used instead of toilet paper?
Like a baby wipe, wet ones.
Well, even those got scarce because I feel like that was like my go-to for a while when the toilet paper, when I couldn't find any. But then like people caught on and those were gone.
Mm.
But then napkins started going away and paper towels went away. So I'm like, what do you use after that? Towels,
Yeah.
Did people do kind of like a dog does in the house and like rub around the carpet,
Hopefully they were home to get in the shower.
leaves, I mean, what did people do before the invention of toilet paper? What did they do? I don't know.
Good question.
But now I feel like you can find so much toilet paper because there all these alternative companies start coming up and everyone's got a piece of the pie, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Clorox wipes too. There's not even a limit at the store of how many you can buy. Used to be a limit of 2, but now you can find them pretty much anywhere.
And there's also a lot of alternative companies that make hand sanitizing wipes or like Clorox types of wipes. But yeah, it's like, what do you do about gas though?
Right.
I guess if you have an all electric car, then you're just kind of laughing at everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Until something happens to the power grid and then, right?
Right. Get a bike.
That's true. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
So what will be the correction and possible overcorrection of a long-term gas crisis?
Hopefully it's short term. They can fix
Yes.
it.
Yes. I agree with that. So something else relevant to our team. So a common thing we like to do on the road is go to the movies.
Mhm.
And for 2020, you couldn't do that, right? And even part of 2021, you couldn't do that. But now theaters are starting to open more, right? And I know I've seen, I think 3 movies now this year in a theater on the road. I know you've seen a movie on the road.
Mhm.
Any difference you've noticed going to the movies now versus pre-COVID?
There weren't very many people in the theater when we went. It was still select your seats, which that was prior to COVID here. I don't know for all theaters. But that was really the only difference. There really weren't a lot of people.
Yeah, when I went, I noticed that it was less people, definitely. But there
Oh,
was also breaks between rows. Like every other row was closed. That's something I noticed.
and you know what else?
What's that?
The promo commercials. They didn't show us those. Like future movies. They just started the movie.
I went to a movie though this year where it did.
Okay.
Or am I making that up? I don't
We
know.
talked about it after. Like, is that something? So it's less time there because they didn't show us. That's one of my favorite parts. That and movie theater popcorn.
Well, I guess another factor is not every movie coming out is going to the theater
Mhm.
because HBO Max they've got like a big contract where so many new things are going there. I think, what is it, the Paramount Network? They've got something that's going to be starting up next year where they're going to release like a new movie every week through their channel.
Oh, wow.
And of course, streaming sources, they should be banking, right now, you would think. Though I heard Netflix has actually lost a bunch of money recently.
Really?
So I'm not quite sure what's going on there. I don't know. So you something I want to point out to you that I don't even know if you realize. So me and Allison did a consult within our own program at one of our day schools this week. And something I picked up on is I feel like you naturally had people's respect. I don't even know if you realize that. I feel like everyone greeted you and talked to you genuinely, like in a respectful way, not like, oh, hey, Allison, you left us, or anything like that. And something that I've noticed a lot about you when you worked direct care here at Grafton, but also in how you've worked with folks answering questions on the road, consultation trips, is that you've always been able to stay solution focused. Like when someone starts complaining about a behavior they're dealing with or something, I feel like your go-to is, what are we doing about it? Not like in a nasty way, but what have we tried? Have you tried this? Like your brain, like you immediately start pouring out all these different ideas, like on the spot. So how do you develop a mindset like that? Because I feel like not everyone has that, right? Because it is easy to fall into, and me and Kim kind of talked about this, about the realities of aggression on another podcast. It is easy sometimes to fall into that mindset of venting a little too much without getting into the solution. What are we going to do about it? So what has helped you keep that solution focused mindset?
I think just realizing that what's happened in the past has happened. Like we can't change that. That's something I tell myself often. Like if I'm worrying or if something has happened, like that's done. But what we can change is the future and what we do next time. So how do we think about things that we want to do differently, but then how do we make ourselves better? Because we can't change the past, but we can change how we respond next time or what we do. So I feel like that's something that everything happens for a reason. I say that all the time, but truly it does. I feel like it does. Whether it taught us something that we didn't do right or something we can learn from, but just continuing to grow.
Okay.
And I've never really been one to like sit around and complained a lot. There's a difference I feel like between like venting to someone versus just complaining all the time. Like, of course we have to
Gotcha.
vent, we have to get out our frustration, but then like, how do we support each other?
Yeah, makes sense. So, I mean, you've got a lot on your plate between work travel and all that. Plus, you also have your adopted daughter from Grafton. How much time do you have for self-care, and what do you do to kind of reset, to bring yourself back to your own personal behavioral mental baseline?
It's definitely something that I need to focus more on. It's something that I put to the side on the back burner a lot. But I enjoy doing different projects. Like that's what keeps me excited, like changing things. Like I've only lived in my house almost a year and I've changed this one room in it probably once a month. So it's been my dining room, it's been a playroom. Now I'm making it a bedroom. It was like a formal dining room before. So I constantly like changing things or thinking of projects to do, and that's what keeps me excited. I feel like that's my self-care. Um, just continuing to change things or shopping. I like to shop a lot. Getting my nails done.
What's your number one activity when, let's say, you've got a travel day, you don't have to train or anything. When you're on the road, what is like a go-to activity for you?
Watching Netflix. Because I'm so busy at home, I don't watch TV or Netflix. but I can really get through some series like on the airplane or in the hotel rooms after we're done training. Like I watch, like I catch up on all the shows that I want to watch.
So Netflix is not losing your revenue. That's what you're saying.
Not, but I have to download it while I'm at the hotel, but then I can watch it when I get home if I want to, because my Wi-Fi is not very great. So that's also helpful.
Gotcha. Yeah, for me, probably the number one thing I look for on the road, just because I enjoy it, is record stores,
Mhm.
like going to music stores. And I pretty much know, like off top of my head, I know the states that have like the best ones, depending on the location that I go to. Shout out to Amoeba Records in California. Incredible store. Um, but something else I was kind of thinking about, what is the weirdest thing that you've done on a trip? Like activity wise, like what's something you've tried on the trip and you're like, huh, that was interesting.
Um, Sitting on a bull. I never thought that I would do that or have an interest in doing that, but when we passed it, it was so still. I said to Kelly, my coworker, I was like, "That's real." She was like, "No, it's not. It's just a statue of it." I'm like, "No, I'm pretty sure that I see it like it's breathing." So we went back and we were actually able to sit on the bull.
Wow.
Mhm.
I
What
think I
about you?
was about to say, I think that beats mine. I don't know if I would do that. Um, Probably the two come to mind. One was axe throwing.
Mhm.
That's something I've always wanted to try. Just we were on a trip. It's very safe. They take you through. It's very controlled, but surprisingly cleansing. Right. But then also I think about the electric scooters in Austin, Texas.
That was cool.
That's something that I've always seen and been like, I'd like to try that sometime. And I don't know. I feel like implicit memory wise, it took me back to high school days of skateboarding,
Mhm.
but just at a much higher speed for the most part. So,
Yeah, they go surprisingly quick. You can get pretty far in a short amount of time.
all right. Well, anything else you would like to share for anyone who's listening or watching right now?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll get different members of our team in here, get some different perspectives. We do have planned, me and Kim have talked about having other guests on the show. So look for that in the future. Until then, we'll see you later.